easy. We can do this for video, for pod, etc. I believe I see a live thing, Joe.
Oh, we are live. Okay, cool. What? So let people start to gather here. But this will be interesting because it's our first. Yeah. It's our first live. I mean, our first live together. We've done.
I do not want our podcast editors to watch this because I think they will raise their prices.
No, so many of you know or may know Alex from being my co-host on that Trippi show. So you're finally getting a look at him. We've been, but we are about to do our first live, and we've got a bunch of things that are in the news today. And have been in the news. Alex. Where do you want to get going? Where do you want to start? He usually starts us off, so let's go.
Oh, man. This is where you almost have to pay. There's so much going on. We talked about this on the last pod. There's a kind of a left hand, right hand, but there's a lot of hands going on right now. A lot of things we could probably rage about, but, not really necessarily Arlene. But, what I want to talk about, Trippi, is almost entirely this week that what's been leading is the whole Trump sending Americans to gulags abroad, particularly in El Salvador. I think Garrett Graff was on with you guys last night. That was an awesome strategy session where he called it state sanctioned kidnapping. But take it away.
No, but it was, and for all of you who are watching, that the talk Rick Stewart and I had with Garrett Graff on a really important piece that he's written will be on the Lincoln Square Substack tomorrow, I think is when we're going to be placing it out there. But it gets to this whole thing. Trump is paying El Salvador to imprison these detainees while pretending the U.S. has no leverage to bring them back. The tough guy who's suddenly so weak and so no power to do anything. He doesn't want to. But I look, obviously, this is, it's creating a whole bunch of problems. Beyond just the moral and shock of what it's turning America into. That we're as a country, this is being done in our name. Is that it's impacting world travel. And it's turned out that that literally, like, I don't know if a couple of things off the bat that people may not understand, but or get a grasp of because the media is not really reporting it. Last month, in the month of March, Alex, 800,000 fewer Canadians crossed the border in 1 month. 800,000 fewer Canadians crossed the border into the United States as they did in March of last year.
Isn't that like 5% of their population? It's a huge number.
It's a huge number. They're not coming. Tourism from Europe is falling off the charts. It's billions of dollars in travel to the United States, spending here, et cetera. Why? Well, it turns out that if you're a foreign person visiting the United States, or you could be picked up, sent to El Salvador, and disappeared. And why would you do that? And it's happening. So the one, so Senator Van Hollen's down now in El Salvador trying to retrieve Gilmore Abrego Garcia, who's could have been easily released when it came to light.
Of course, Trump said no and did the classic Trump thing, which is doubling down and kind of daring someone to do anything about it. And meanwhile, can create 5 or 6 other controversies at once. But at least Senator Van Hollen's down there. He's doing it right, as I know you'll get into in a minute, Joe.
Yeah, but that's where Garrett Graff calls it, state-sanctioned kidnapping, right? And he argued that El Salvador, basically that facility shouldn't be called a prison. We should all be calling it a gulag or a concentration camp. and that's what the media should be calling it. I mean, again, he's turning ICE into the Gestapo. We got to start
and more
talking in
importantly, he's
these
going
terms.
against the courts, which
Right.
is going to be a huge problem. I mean, this is again, you said this last year at some point. He tests and he tests and he tests and he pushes the waters to see what he can get away with. And if like for example, was it like a 9-0 decision that this was not that this shouldn't happen, some of these deportations shouldn't happen, and they're kind of thumbing their nose at the Supreme Court. That is where this thing could go from a serious abuse of human rights to a serious constitutional crisis beyond what we're already talking about.
Yeah, well, that's what Heather Cox Richardson in her newsletter said, that Anna Bauer, Roger Peloff, and Ben Benwitz of Lawfare, that they watched the hearing and explained that the judge is now building the evidence to determine whether individuals in the administration have have acted in contempt of court. So but this is the courts just, it's too slow. It's taking that this is going to go on for another 2 weeks. I think the judge has given the Trump administration time, to explain things, but it's really, we'll get to this, we are and we'll get to the attention economy in a bit, but because I think that's part of what's going on here. But on this case, the attention that the Trump administration is getting is really, really hurting them. Reuters Ipsos poll says that 82% of Americans, including 68% of Republicans, think that the president should obey federal court rulings, even if he disagrees with them. So you got 82% of Americans, 68% of Republicans, and what are they doing? He's creating attention. How is he creating attention? By sending an innocent man, who it turns out was, it's an administrative error, sending him to El Salvador, to a gulag, to a concentration camp, and then claiming he can't do anything about it. And then when the court says, bring him back, facilitate, and that's wish they'd done a stronger word there, but they needed to get a 9-0 vote. And that's probably, I think the most significant thing was the 9-0 vote.
Right. No dissents they can possibly grab onto.
Right. And so they had to get that wording down to where all 9 justices would go for it. And so by saying facilitate instead of must or something, I mean, I think that probably got the 9 votes, but that was the signal to Trump and to everybody. It's 9-0. This is wrong. Get them back.
Right.
And
but just like the 9-0, just like the 68%, he is going to ignore those until he absolutely cannot. And my point is, okay, it's great that there's 68% of Republicans who say he should obey the court rulings, until and unless somebody gets to them, bridges the gap, and says, okay, there need to be electoral consequences to this, then he is not going to do a damn thing about it.
Well, no, that's my point. But my point is, in an attention economy, the information economy, and we'll talk about this later, this is getting a lot of attention on Trump, on these gulags, on what this means, and nobody likes it. 82% of Americans, including 69% of Republicans, think that he should be, obey the federal court. And the federal court is saying, bring him back. And he's saying, no, I don't have the power to do that, because he's suddenly a very weak man. And we all know that if he called down there and said, I want him back, they would, snap to attention, and the guy would be on the next plane. So what I'm saying is the American people are starting to catch on to this because of the attention that is being created. And I think so Van Hollen going down there is important, because that's one of the things, and we'll talk about this later, but it's one of the things Democrats need to learn how to do, is get attention.
Let's go there in a minute. I'm going to throw three numbers at you here. $254 billion in foreign tourist spending is likely down the drain this year. They're already seeing something like, it's not just Canadians, it's tens of millions of canceled plans to the United States this year. It'll be more. 87 million foreign tourists fewer this year, most likely. And in the short term, that's like $20-30 billion a month.
Right.
So there are real, I mean, that is a whale of a number that is really, really going to hurt the economy. But Joe, let's get back to what you said about
there's a lot he's doing to hurt the economy.
There's a lot. This is another one.
Yeah.
Let's get back to what you said though about, and this is really what I wanted to get into today for our first live, was the idea about the attention economy. And I think this sent a notification to all of our subscribers on Substack. So thank you all for tuning in. We do have some of your attention, hopefully. But what this about is really oxygen. And he is the best there is at draining as much oxygen. He understands how to manipulate the media. He understands how to manipulate coverage. And what we often talk about on our show is, what should the response be, and who is actually doing it? And Joe, I know you flagged 3 or 4 different responses that I know we thought were really interesting.
Well, I mean, the first thing though is, let's look at what he's done, right? What's the oxygen that he's sucking up? What's the attention that he's getting on? And we just talked about the attention on El Salvador, on the on the gulags, on this not obeying the courts, all that there's no one in the high numbers of people who he's losing, I think, because of that, in terms of favorable and other things. But then you get to, what's the other oxygen taking thing that he sucked all the world into? Oh, the tariffs. That's the other one, right? Where you got now clear majorities want Congress to take back tariff authority from him, because of the chaos it's created. Clear majority, 56% of the American people want Congress to take tariff authority back from him. It's so what I'm saying is, first of all, he's suddenly getting attention on stuff that even when he switches, even when he kind of like waves the tariff thing to distract you from the gulag thing, or the gulag thing to distract you from the economic tariff pain, he's suddenly not anywhere he wants to be in terms of where he's building up, where he used to be able to distract the people with something entertaining. That's not happening right now. But I mean, to get to your point, and to get to the whole point I'm making about the attention economy, that's what Democrats need to learn. And you're seeing signs of it. Look, in the world we're in, the fragmented media, the mainstream journalism and mainstream media cannot possibly, it's not going to step up. That's not going to happen. So in that world, you either have to be able to do something that gets attention, so that people will focus, particularly people who don't pay much attention to the news or to politics, because they hate both. You have to get attention, or you got to be where people are paying attention. And so Trump is great at creating attention, and he's great at being infiltrating and being where people are paying attention, whether it's UFC fights or
it was him showing up to his own trials last year.
Right, exactly. That gets attention. That's where everybody focuses. So, the first sign was Cory Booker. I mean, that speech, his filibuster, it gets attention. That's what the Democrats have to learn how to do. You create a moment that gets the media, gets social networks, gets everybody talking about it, and gets it into the, gets that into people's, where people are, where they're not paying much attention, but they all hear about Cory Booker and what he's saying. So that's what I mean. I think that was really important. I think Van Hollen going to El Salvador the senator from Maryland, to get a Maryland constituent back, or to at least visit him and make sure he's okay, or that he's even alive, that he wasn't just disappeared and doesn't exist any longer. So I think you're going to see the Van Hollen trip turn into another day where the story is being brought forth in a way that hurts Trump or brings attention to what Trump's doing. That's what people need to learn how to do. And I think that's what I'm saying. You're starting to see signs of that. Harvard, instead
telling
of
him to go pound sand.
Yeah, it is another step. I mean, it's got to be. We have to start saying what this is. We start calling things gulags, not prisons, when that's what when they literally are concentration camps. Where he's literally picking up people on the street and disappearing them to El Salvador, and you can't, and then feigns that there's no way to get them back. Once that happens, it can happen to anybody. There is no one who is safe. And by the way, a bunch of Europeans and Canadians and others have thought, and countries are now doing travel warnings on the United States of America. I can't remember the last any time in memory that's happened, but that's important. And they're not, and people are not coming because of all of this. And I think also just resentment on the tariffs that he imposed worldwide. So yeah, it is it's about calling things what they are and taking it to him. It's like the one thing, and I've said this repeatedly, this is not the time to play dead. This is the time to get loud, cause attention, including, April 19th. I mean, people ask, what can we do?
Yeah,
April 19th.
what should the people watching this do, Joe?
Yeah, April 19th, there is the next hands-off rallies around the country. Go to, Indivisible and other places. You can Google online for the hands-off rally near you, and go. Bring a friend. I mean, this is about building a pro-democracy movement. Again, we are being opposed.
That's exactly it. Yeah,
by a movement, the movement that wants to destroy our democracy, and just and basically impose their will on the American people, and the world, frankly, and use all of us to accomplish it. It's a fear of us. And we created the world's greatest economy, not Donald Trump. And he uses that to basically, destroy the trust that we built around the world. That's all going on. We've got to build a movement, a pro-democracy movement against that. And so you've got to get loud. You've got to, find one more friend, one more coworker, one family member, to start to
get them engaged now. We cannot wait until next October for people. Look, the people, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, you're probably already pretty engaged, and thank you for that. Yeah. The problem is too many people on our side tend to wait way too long. You listening to this are the cavalry. Joe, I know we're getting close to time. I do want to make a couple more plugs. One, if you haven't been to Says Us, go to says.us, join that. That is our pro-democracy social network that Joe founded and is actively growing by the day. It's another one of those places where we're trying to build something. I think the way you always phrase it, Joe, it's a civil place for human beings to actually...
Yeah, it's also, look, the fact is, how did we get here? We got here because they own and we rent. They own X. They own Fox News. They own Breitbart. They own Sinclair Broadcasting, where they then take the money and buy. And now the chairman of Sinclair Broadcasting is buying the Baltimore Sun. They basically buy more and more media outlets that they then turn into their propaganda networks. We rent ads on Sinclair in every local market, buying TV ads for campaigns. We rent ads on with Twitter, on Facebook. They turn that money into more media propaganda, and we need to start building our own information pro-democracy distribution of information hubs. And Says Us is one of the places that we're doing that. But you can, listen to that Trippi show. It's on our podcast. Learn more about this. Get friends to start going on Says Us and listening to that Trippi show. And subscribe to Lincoln Square, which you all are doing. But get your friends to do it. We need to. That's why Lincoln Square got started too. It's to build our own media platforms where we can get information out there and you can get it to your friends and build a pro-democracy movement, pro-democracy information, take on the propaganda and the lies and the corruption, and stop this now way over the line unconstitutional. We're already in the constitutional crisis that happened
It's
today.
there.
We're in it, and it's up to it. It's not something that can be fought every October, by knocking on doors in October every 2 years. It's got to be fought now. Get loud. Do not play dead. I don't care who, when you hear that, call them out, get loud, and get to those rallies and keep fighting.
Joe, I think that's a pretty good place to wrap. If you didn't catch Garrett Graff, our friend Garrett Graff's episode last night on Subscriber Session, he wrote a really good article recently. It was Has America Reached the End of the Road, I think. That live show last night was for a smaller group of paid subscribers, but it was a really good show. I think it's so compelling. We are going to open that up later in the week, the not live version for everybody. So be on the lookout for that. Mm-hmm. Joe, anywhere else you want to send people before we sign off?
No, but again, can't tell you. You should look for Garrett, the show that we did last night with Garrett. It'll be out the next day or so. And it's very, very important. And also, you might want to follow him and read his Substack, because it's quite good. Not Substack, but his what's it called? Do you remember? Doomsday? I can't remember the name of it. I'm spacing here, but
doomsdayscenario.co. That is Garrett's Substack. I highly recommend checking it out.
It's not a Substack. It's something else.
Oh, is it a ghost? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, but it's well worth reading. He was, so for people who don't know, he was my deputy press secretary in the Dean campaign. And I just think is just an amazing writer who has accomplished so much, but he is a leading voice right now on the threat and what we have to do to stop it. I hope you'll look up where you can find Garrett Graff. And can you repeat that for people?
I believe it is doomsdayscenario.co.
Great. I hope you all tune in tomorrow when we release it, and I hope you'll check Garrett out.
Yep.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone who is in the chat. This is, again, our first live. We are definitely going to start taking questions and responding just like we do. If you do have a question you really want us to talk about, we're pretty much going to go record another show almost right after this. So Good time to plug if you want to email thattrippishow@gmail.com. I promise we do read them. But other than that, Joe, I think I'll see you in a little bit. And thanks,
And that
everybody.
drops usually on Fridays, that Trippi show. So if you want to check that out. Thanks, everybody. Take care.